Hey, what's up, everybody? We're back with another NBA breakdown for Tuesday, January 11th. We've got a decent slate of NBA games here, and we're going to walk through all of them, just try to give you data and information that help you to make the best picks you can, whether that's picking the same things I do or picking exactly against me. One of the things I love is sometimes I get messages about things people pick up on in the stream or, watching the videos back that I probably do like, but I didn't even realize I did when people listen to me talk about this stuff. So, hope this information is helpful for you. As always, I appreciate any comments, likes, subscribe on the YouTube channel, any of that kind of stuff. And also, yesterday did just start a podcast. So, if you are like me and you prefer to be able to listen to this stuff in the car or while you're working out and it's easier, you can go. I'll get the link out on Twitter actually, because I don't remember it off the top of my head. But we are getting the podcast going as well. And soon that should be available, all the different places that you can get your podcasts. All right, that said, let's jump into the games. I am a little bit out of order today. So, forgive me for I don't even know what the right order is. I'm just going through the way I have them in my notebook. First game is the Suns and the Raptors. Phoenix is -4 or -4.5, depending on where you look in this game. And Toronto, we know, has been on a roll. They've won 6 in a row now, and just have been rolling. Not a lot more to say about it than that. Phoenix, on the other hand, has been struggling a little bit, but Phoenix hasn't been healthy, and they're finally getting everyone back. They actually had everyone back in their last game against Miami, Ayton and Crowder and McGee, and they laid an absolute egg. Phoenix is not a team, especially with Chris Paul's leadership and Devin Booker, and even Ayton coming into his own, I think, that's likely to lay that bad of an egg 2 games in a row. But I'm not going to bet based purely on that. On the Toronto side, we do have Scotty Barnes, likely to be out, though I think he is still a game time decision officially, and Gary Trent Jr. as well. If Barnes doesn't play, Toronto is 8 points worse in defensive rating with Barnes out than they are with him in. So it really affects them on the defensive end of the floor. This is a little bit of a battle in terms of two teams that are in different spots with pace. Toronto has the 5th slowest pace on the season at 96.45, and Phoenix has the 5th fastest at 99.89. However, Toronto has been playing faster more recently, and I think that that's a little bit of a function of them getting everyone healthy and maybe playing teams that play a little faster themselves. When Toronto plays at a 95 or better pace, which is not a super high pace, again, Phoenix is 99.89 on the season and Toronto's 96.45, though they've definitely played some games below that. Toronto scored 120 or more in 5 out of 9, and they've averaged 118.7 points. The average total in those games where the pace has been 95 or better has been 231.3. The total today is 223.5, and that's gone over in 7 out of the last 9 when Toronto plays at this kind of pace. So based purely on pace, that's a little too rhymey, but purely on the pace, if this is a pace-up game, on the Toronto side, it looks potentially like a good spot for an over. Now, with Ayton back, one of the things I always want to look at is some of the player-specific things, and I have 2 to share with you today. One of them is Deandre Hayton being back. Surprisingly, based purely on the numbers, they're actually better with him out. Now, I don't think that they are actually better with him out, but if we look only at their numbers, their offensive rating is 3.2 worse. Defensive rating is 2.9 worse. They score 3.3 points less per game, and they allow 2.6 points more per game. So I think Ayton matters, but man, they have a number of good bigs, and I think it maybe more matters that they're just getting back to full health so that they can get their rotations going again. On the Toronto side, the big person to look at here is Fred VanVleet. I mean, VanVleet has been absolutely on fire lately, especially from 3-point range, and it shows in the numbers. So in their last 6 games on this winning streak, he's accounted for 30.5% of their points, 30.3, 16.2, so that one was lower, 25.6, 29.2, and 26.2. So he's accounted for over a quarter of their points in 5 out of these last 6 games on this win streak. Here's why that matters to me. Phoenix is a good defensive team. For most of this season, they were the 2nd best defense in the league after Golden State. They've gotten away from that a little bit, but I think that has a lot to do with all the injuries that they've had and rotations getting messed up. Now that they're getting everyone back, I expect them to get back to being the kind of strong defensive team that they were earlier in the year. Also, I don't know who they're going to put Bridges on, but if they decide to put Bridges, who is a phenomenal defender, on Fred VanVleet, and he's able to slow him down, I think Toronto's in big trouble in terms of where the points are going to come from in this game. And so I think matchup-wise, this is potentially a good matchup for Phoenix against this Toronto team. Looking at the trends, very strong under trends for Phoenix, but very strong over trends for Toronto. I think that's reflected in some of the numbers that I was sharing there in the matchup data. Not super surprising. Phoenix is 0-5 in their last 5 against a team with a winning record. Toronto's 10-1 against the spread in their last 11 versus a team with a winning record. And the under is 4-1 in the last 5 between these two teams at Toronto. So the trend specifically would actually point to Toronto here. And they would kind of be back and forth between the over and under, though maybe point a little bit to the under. So out of all that, what I actually like here is Phoenix in the first half, -2.5. The reason for that is that Toronto has won their second half in 7 straight games. The first half has been closer, but the second half they've won. If you go back and look at how Phoenix did when they had everyone playing, which was like Christmas and before, the previous 10 games from Christmas back, they were only 6-4 straight up in the second half. So not terrible, but not phenomenal. Especially after Phoenix laying an egg in that last game, I like them to come out strong here. And I think especially if Scotty Barnes doesn't play and they can hold Fred VanVleet in check, this is a good spot for Phoenix. I like them for the game overall. I haven't bet that, but I like the first half even better. And if I was going to choose something in terms of the over-under here, I think I would actually lean toward the under. The matchup matters more to me, with Phoenix being a strong defense and Toronto being a team that traditionally has played down in pace, than, these recent numbers in terms of how much Toronto's been scoring. They've had some shoddy competition in there too. So those are some of the numbers on that game. Hopefully there's something in there that is helpful to you. Next game up is Minnesota and New Orleans. Minnesota has everybody back. They're healthy. Patrick Beverley is a game time decision here, so he may be back in as well. If he does play, Minnesota's offensive rating is about 1 point worse with him in, but their defensive rating is 6 points better. He definitely is a help to them on the defensive end of the floor. The Pelicans do play a little bit better at home than they do away. They average 3 more points per game at home than their season average, and they give up about 9 less at home than their season average. So it is a better spot for them being at home. In terms of some of the other numbers here, though, in the last 6 games with Towns and Russell both back, like if you've heard me talk before, I think Towns and Russell both playing is absolutely massive for this Minnesota team. When they're fully healthy, they actually have a fantastic lineup with Russell, Towns, Anthony Edwards, Jared Vanderbilt. Beasley can come in and hit some shots. They're pretty potent. But when any 1 or 2 of those guys sit out, it turns all the focus to 1 or 2 people defensively, and I don't think they have enough to overcome that. So it's a big deal that everybody's healthy right now for Minnesota. All that to say, in the last 6 with Towns and Russell, which means pretty much with everyone, Minnesota's only allowed 105 points twice, and the Pelicans have only scored 105 points or more in 2 out of their last 5 games. Minnesota held opponents under 30% from three-point range in 3 out of the last 6. The Pelicans have been under 30% from three-point range in 2 out of their last 5. And then Minnesota held teams under 44% from the field in 4 out of their last 6. And the Pelicans have been under 44% from the field in 4 of their last 5. One other matchup note here, I think Jared Vanderbilt is a great matchup for Brandon Ingram. He's athletic enough, he's tall enough, he can play inside, he can play outside. And so I think this is a decent matchup for Minnesota across the board. The other thing is that Towns can pull Valanciunas outside. So that's another reason to like them here. Now, Towns and Russell have only been back for 3 games, and they played Oklahoma City twice and Houston once. Hard to take a lot away from that. They did score 135 and 141 in 2 of those games. But again, that's actually really good against Oklahoma City, but not as great against Houston because they give up a ton of points to everyone. Looking at the trends here, very strong against the spread trends for Minnesota. Decent against the spread trends for New Orleans, almost 50-50. Strong over trends for Minnesota, 50-50 on over-under for New Orleans. But then in this matchup specific, the over is 13-3 in the last 16 at New Orleans, and Minnesota's 4-0 against the spread in their last 4 at New Orleans. So all of that said, Minnesota actually went from 3.5 down to 2.5 now. I think that's some curious line movement and kind of has me thinking about this game a little bit because that's not what I expected. I actually did get in on Minnesota minus 3.5 already, so I'm thinking about what I want to do with that. And I actually really like the under here. I don't think New Orleans is going to be able to score a lot in this game, and Minnesota's numbers have gotten a little bit inflated by playing bad teams. So I think that the total here being 227 is really high. I haven't bet that yet, partly because of that trend to the over that's pretty strong between these two teams specifically. But it's something that I'm thinking about, and definitely the numbers, I think, point that way. Next game up is a matchup between two teams that have been pretty bad. That's the Nuggets and the Clippers. Neither of these teams is great at scoring. Denver has been under 100 points in 4 of their last 6 away from home. The other two were 121 and 124, so it was almost feast or famine with the Nuggets. They either score a ton or they don't score much at all. The Clippers on the other side have been super consistent. In their last 5 at home, they've scored 106, 108, 104, 108, and 100. So between 100 and 108 in all 5, and really 104 to 108 for the most part, I think we can be pretty confident in what we're going to get from the Clippers on a nightly basis. And that's a team that scores 100 most of the time, but under 110 most of the time. They're just going to be right in that channel between 100 and 110. The last time these two teams played, it played out that way. Denver won 103 to 100. So again, it was right in that channel. So my question here is, can Denver score enough to get over where the Clippers will be? A couple things matchup or personnel wise. So Will Barton is supposed to be out tonight, and he can absolutely go off for the Nuggets and really help them offensively. But when you look at the data, their offensive rating is 108.9 with him in this year. And in 5 games with him out, it's all the way up to 122. So not only have they been better on offense, they've been substantially better on offense when Barton is out. On the other side of the ball, with Morris in for the Clippers, their defensive rating has been 103.9 without him, and now it's 111.9 with him in. Their offensive rating is a little bit better, but not substantial. So I think these two player-specific things, in general, the Nuggets are better with Barton out on offense, and in general, the Clippers are worse on defense with Morris in, though they might be a little bit better on offense. Looking at the trends here, very bad against the spread trends for both teams. There's a strong lead toward the under for Denver. And then Denver's 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 at the Clippers. So do with all of that what you will. One of the things I'm doing here, if I have plays I love, I'll still give them out here. But for the most part, I'm going to put my plays out on Twitter, give you the numbers and analysis here that hopefully is information to help you make your decisions. And you can probably tell where I'm leaning, right, on most of this stuff. It's not like I hide it very well. All right, next game up is the Thunder and the Wizards, another kind of clunker of a game. Oklahoma City is only averaging 97.6 points away from home this year, and they give up 109.2. They're currently on a 4-game losing streak, and in their last 4 away from home, they've been under 100 twice. Once they scored 101, and then they were up at 111 once. Washington on the other side, they've been playing okay, I guess, if you go back and look at their game log. They are a little bit better scoring the ball at home. They average 110.2, where their season average is 106.4. They also give up about a point more per game. In their last 4 at home, they've scored 111, 124, 119, and 110. So we talk about these channels that they play in. For the most part, they've been playing in that 110 to 120 range, which against Oklahoma City would definitely be enough if they can get there. Looking at some of the numbers here, in Washington's last 5 wins, they've gone over their season average in all 5 of those games in terms of assists. Their season average is 23.9, and Oklahoma City gives up 25.3 on average away from home. So they do give up over that season average. They've also gone over their rebound average for the season, which is 44.5 in 4 out of 5. Oklahoma City allows 52.2 rebounds a game away from home. So Washington looks good to be able to hit some of these key numbers that they're hitting when they're winning games. On the other side, what I looked at is what happens when Oklahoma City scores under 100 points. And I looked at December and January. The biggest correlation here is in 5 out of the 7 times they've gone under 100, they've been under their season average in terms of their field goal percentage. Their average is only 41.3, and Washington does give up 45.8, but most teams are going to give up more than 41.3. And Oklahoma City just hasn't been shooting it well lately. They've been shooting it really atrocious from three-point range, where their season average is 30.8. And when they go under 100 points, 4 out of 7 times, they've been under 30.8 from three-point range. Washington at home gives up 34.8, but that's like average. They play okay against the three-pointer. So maybe not tons to take away in terms of how many points Oklahoma City is going to score, but this doesn't look like a place for them to necessarily smash. And so I think the question is going to be whether they can play well enough defensively to hold Washington under 110, because the spread here is -9 or 9.5. So it is a pretty wide spread. In terms of the trends, strong against the spread trends for Oklahoma City, very, very bad against the spread trends for Washington, strong under trends for Oklahoma City, 50-50 for Washington, and not much here in terms of this specific matchup. All right, the next game up is the Pistons, who just beat the Jazz last night in a pretty dominant performance at that, going up against the Chicago Bulls, who have all the potential in the world, but sometimes, even when they're winning games, I feel like that actually covers for the fact that they're not really hitting their potential lately. So Detroit is 3-3 against the spread on a back-to-back. So not too bad. 500 on a back-to-back isn't bad. This is their 5th game in 7 days. So that's something to pay attention to. They are a young team. And I think, athletic and probably well-conditioned, but the roster doesn't go incredibly deep, and they've been playing a lot. Chicago is 8-4 against the spread when they have a rest advantage, which they'll have today. In their last 5 games, Chicago has really been up and down scoring the ball. They scored 99, 130, 102, 120, 108. Here's what I want to say on Chicago. This is a little bit more analysis heavy or matchup heavy than it is data. But I've watched Chicago quite a bit lately, and I feel like they just play really stupid. So sometimes they make DeMar DeRozan the point guard, and when he's the point guard, he's super ball dominant, and he tends to go one-on-one a lot. Now, he ends up scoring a lot of points because he does have a phenomenal mid-range game, and he's pretty good at taking people one-on-one. But it totally cuts out Vucevic and LaVine. And what it especially does is cuts out one of the things Vucevic does best, because in order for DeRozan to get in the lane, Vucevic has to clear out to the three-point line, which is why he ends up shooting a lot of threes. And he can hit those sometimes. But man, one of the most dominant things I've seen against a lot of these teams, and this would be true tonight, where Detroit doesn't have a very good big man. You feed Vucevic inside and he gets those little baby hooks going, they're just unstoppable. But he'll hit 2 or 3 in a row, and then they move him out on the three-point line, and he never goes back to it. So I'm really interested to see, in terms of coaching with Chicago, if they can move toward these things they do really well and mitigate some of what I think is poor strategy. Like tonight, Vucevic should be able to have a massive game against Isaiah Stewart inside, but if he goes outside, Isaiah Stewart's going to be able to keep up with him. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how Chicago approaches this game. Now, since Christmas, Chicago has scored 108 or more points in 6 out of their 8 games, which is solid, but I think they have a much higher potential than that even. Since Christmas, Detroit's been super up and down, under 100 points in 3 out of 8 games, but over 110 points in 3 out of 8 games. I guess what I'm kind of leaning on here is that Chicago lives up to their potential a little more, and that coming off a big win last night, Detroit has a bit of a letdown, especially playing their 5th game in 7 days. With trends, it's actually bad against the spread trends for both of these teams, but matchup specific, Detroit is 0-4 against the spread in their last 4 at Chicago and 0-9 in their last 9 against Chicago. The under is also 6-0 in the last 6 between these two teams. Now, this spread is massive. It's Chicago minus 14 or 14.5. And even with what I said about Detroit and some of the matchup stuff here, that's just way too big for me to take pregame. So this is one I'm definitely going to be watching live. I doubt that I would ever get in on Detroit, even if it was plus 20 or more. But I think if they can get this down around the -10 range, I'd be interested in jumping in on Chicago. No bets for me yet there. Last game we have today is my favorite game of the day for sure, and that's the Warriors and the Grizzlies. You know that I absolutely love the Warriors, but I have definitely come around on the Grizzlies as well. For a while, I did not like John Morant being back. You've heard me talk about that. I don't need to talk about it more, but man, the guy's been phenomenal, and you have to give him his props for what he's been doing. Now, the big thing in this game is that Draymond Green is still going to be out, and that makes a massive difference. So this year, with Draymond Green, their offensive rating is 112.7, pretty solid. Without him, only 106.5, so 6 points worse. Defensive rating is even more pronounced. With him, it's 101.9, really good. Without him, 110.1, not so good. They're allowing 8.9 points more per game without Draymond, and allowing 5.1 more, but scoring 8.1 less. I went back and looked at 2021 last season, just because with Clay back now, that changes the dynamics with having Draymond Green out. But it really paints the same picture. I won't go through all the numbers here, but the difference in terms of having Green in and out, well, and actually Clay was out for most of last year too. I should go back and look at one more year after that. But 2021 was definitely the same. I wish I had that epiphany while I was doing the research. Maybe I'll go look and I'll tweet it out, depending on what I find. So having Draymond out is a huge deal. Also, Peyton could still be out here, who is a great defender. I think these things really hurt them on defense. I mean, Clay coming back helps, but he's still going to be on a minutes restriction, I have to imagine. And one of the big things here is that Golden State's just been atrocious shooting the three-pointer lately. They've been under 100 points in 3 straight games. And I'd have to go back and look, but I think they've been under 30% from three-point range in all 3 of those games. One of them, I think, was like 12 or 15%. So you have to imagine they're going to come out of that slump at some point. The question is just, when do they come out of that slump? And is it tonight? On the other side, Memphis has just been awesome. On a huge winning streak again. Since Christmas, they're averaging 117.7 points per game and only allowing 104.9. So with Ja back, they're playing even better on offense and still playing phenomenal on defense. Looking at the trends here, they're good against the spread trends for Golden State, but when you look at the trends that just take more recent into account, it's actually bad, not good. The against the spread trends are very good for Memphis. Under trends there for Golden State and Memphis, and the under is 4-0 in the last 4 between these two teams at Memphis. So trend-wise, it definitely points to the under. But with Draymond Green out, I'm actually interested in Memphis's team total over here. I'm not sure about the game over as a whole because I don't know what we're going to get from Golden State. This could be the game where they break out and they score 120 points. It could also be a continuation of the slump they're in where they don't even get to 100 again. If they don't get to 100 with Green out, I think Memphis is going to smash them. I do think Memphis money line is a decent bet here, though I'm going to definitely wait and watch this live. I think there's a good chance I get a better number live than I do pregame. All right, that's the breakdown for the games today. As always, hit me up on Twitter, DMs, wherever, with any questions or thoughts that you have. What am I not seeing that you're seeing? I appreciate when you throw stuff out there that makes me better too. I know that I definitely do not have all the answers, as my betting picks sometimes will indicate. But looking forward to getting on a run here in terms of analysis and betting. Follow me on Twitter at NBA Attack, and I will see you there. Have a good day, everybody.